Good morning, everybody. This is Lance Maurer, CEO and founder of Cinnafilm. With me today is Ernie Sanchez, our COO and head of product. And we're excited to bring a new webinar to you called High Quality Media Conversions in the Cloud. And we'll be talking about PixelString, our new platform as a service, and give you sort of the basics of how it operates and what you can use it for. Okay? Before we get started, I just want to tell everybody, I hope you're all staying safe in these challenging times, and our best to all of you. Okay. A little introduction about us, if you're not familiar with us. Cinnafilm is a broadcast and cinema engineering company. We focus on image processing software. You might be familiar with some of our products that are already out there: Tachyon, DarkEnergy, Wormhole, our new Xenon, our RadiantGrid transcoder. These are image processing solutions that we provide to the professional market to do some very high-end and complex media conversions. And for 10 years now, we've been selling this software into the enterprise space. We started in cinema and migrated into broadcast and developed a variety of plugins for enterprise transcoders. And in recent years, we've been focusing the solution set on streaming and home theater. So we have a nice variety of experience over the years that we want to pack into this tool set for your benefits. Today we'll be talking about what PixelString is and what it can do, how it works, and what's included in the system. Ernie will walk us through a quick start and setting up the system and connecting your storage, and then he'll walk you through a typical workflow, how you build it in PixelString, and running a job using Tachyon. I'll be talking a little bit about budgetary thoughts and strategies. I'll talk about test mode and other tips that you can use to get the most out of the tool set. And then I'll talk a little bit about the upcoming Skywalker audio tool set that we're bringing to the platform early this summer. Then we'll close out with some final comments and open the field up to any questions you may have, and we'll just go to the end of the hour. All right, let's talk about what PixelString is and what it can do. Well, basically, it's everything that we do. It's Tachyon, DarkEnergy, Wormhole, Xenon, RadiantGrid transcoder, and we built this out as a platform so that we could add other best-of-breed technologies like the Skywalker audio toolset, Cinecert's Anini. We've got the Technicolor tone mapping solution, and many others that are going to be coming down the pipeline here. PixelString is a high-quality media conversion platform as a service. It operates both on-prem and in the cloud, the goal here being to mirror the functionality in both locations. So if you build out a workflow that you like on-prem, you can push it to the cloud with confidence and get the exact same picture and sound output. Now, not everything is going to be identical on-prem as it is in the cloud, because in the cloud, there's going to be some microservices that are starting to come online that may not be available on-prem. But by and large, as far as the core functionality of media conversion, transcode, and image processing, it's one for one. And in the cloud, what we've done is we've added a back end that auto-scales itself to meet demand. So we've got access in each of the regions to hundreds, if not thousands, of CPUs and GPUs at our disposal. And because of that compute power, this thing is designed to really scale as fast as it needs to scale to meet all the demand we throw at it. It currently operates in AWS and connects to your S3 storage. That's the primary configuration, but we do also have the ability to onboard enterprise customers in the Azure system, if that's your cloud of choice. The big thing about PixelString is it's a very big, complex machine. It's got a lot of moving parts. It's got a lot of software. It's got a lot of CPU, a lot of GPU. But the main thing is it's a balanced ecosystem. And after doing this for 10 years now, one thing that has always been challenging when you're in the enterprise software space is having control over the hardware configurations at the endpoint. Certainly, we make recommendations, and by and large, folks follow that. But the nice thing about the cloud is that we get to pick the configuration, we manage the drivers, we test it out, and we don't leave any cycles on the table, because compute cycles are expensive if you leave them if you don't do it properly, right? So we try to make the machine as efficient as possible to handle all the transcode, all the image processing, all the audio processing, and all the third-party tools that you might need. So if you don't need the Cinecert's Anini, that machine doesn't fire up. It basically fires up anything that you ask it to do. okay? The focus of PixelStrings is to provide the highest quality output that ensures the very best possible visual and audio experience by the viewers. I mean, that's been our passion since day one, and I think we've got a solid reputation for picture quality. We've grown into the transcoding space over the last 10 years as we've experienced broadcast and now streaming. And with audio, it's something that we want the whole package. We want this to look and sound as good as possible, and that is why we're out there adding all these best-of-breed technologies. PixelStrings is designed to handle about, let's say, 90 to about 95% of the professional formats for the broadcast and streaming space. We're not going to try to do 100% of it. There are just some arcane codecs and things that are out there that, if we tried to do everything for everybody, we'd probably put ourselves out of business, frankly. So we're going to try to lock it down to a core group of codecs that are used for modern deliverables. We definitely want to be forward-thinking, but we don't want to be too forward-thinking. We want to be able to let you put this to use today. For example, the IMF that we've done with Cinnafilm. I call it a simplified IMF, and there's a white paper on the support page that talks about it that John wrote. But the IMF is designed to be very straightforward and get your content seen, like right now. It's designed to meet the minimum requirements and then some to get your content into places that require IMF. But IMF, as you may know, is a very large, it's a big specification. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and we're not going to try to do all of those things. But certainly, as the industry sort of adopts IMF more and more and requires more and more of those components to be standardized, certainly we'll grow with that. And that's one of the reasons we teamed up with Cinnafilm, because they're experts in the topic, right? So PixelStrings is also API. I mean, the big power of PixelStrings is that it's a big API-driven machine. The GUI that we have in the app, and that's what Ernie will demo here in a few minutes, the GUI is designed so that you can go up and you can use the API. You don't have to worry about integrating it. But if you are someone that's building out your own ecosystem, certainly the API is available. So if you want to connect a MAM or a workflow engine to it, it's designed for that. How does it work? Excuse me. So PixelStrings is designed to convert, fix, and normalize content at all places in the media supply chain. So if you have a shot that comes in that needs to be fixed, you can do it there. If you're shooting a large sporting venue and all the content's being captured in 50 and you want to send it back to the States in 60, so when it lands, it can go straight into editorial, pardon me. It can do that. And we've got experience with those types of workflows. Also during assembly, if you're assembling something and you have legacy content and the legacy content mismatches the format of your mezzanine, then you would use PixelStrings to fix that library content. But a lot of the usage is on the back end. Once you create your final deliverable, creating all the different renditions for all the different markets that are needed, PixelStrings is the thing that you would use to make sure that all of those outputs look and sound as pristine as they possibly can. And of course, for the library and legacy content, really the engine of Tachyon and what its philosophy is, and DarkEnergy as well, is to make the very possible best fluid playback of progressive images and make them as pristine as possible. So for all that library and legacy content that you need to lift up into your new streaming service, that's exactly what this is designed for. So it's really as simple as uploading the file into PixelStrings, telling it what to do, and pulling the file back. And of course, if your content looks good and plays clean, then you have happy viewers, and happy viewers reward all of us by paying us. So what's included with the PixelString? So this is a bit of an eye chart, but it includes everything. It shows, everything that's under the hood. So PixelStrings manages the storage and compute. So it connects to your S3 storage, or you can upload a file. And we are going to be adding, by the way, some additional storage options later this year. And I will do a webinar in about a month or so talking about what we would have been saying at NAB had we all been able to get together there. And at that time, I'll talk about some new partners in the storage area as well. But PixelStrings, what you see here, it's basically broken up by 5 segments. You've got storage and compute, transcoding, which includes the audio tool set, things like Dolby Audio, the codecs, Kakadu, Main Concept, Avid are the main ones that we're working on. We've got the image processing library, which is all of the things that we have. It's included. The Xenon is the new thing. That's the SDR to HDR and vice versa converter. that we partnered up with Technicolor tone mapping, and Ernie will go into that a little bit more later. And it also manages all the third-party machines like Cinasert, Accurate Player, and more to come. You see Venera's name on there. That's a roadmap feature. And then the only thing that we database is your workflow and your basic user information. We don't keep any of your content, and we don't keep any of your credit card numbers if you use that option to reload your system. We use a third-party service called Stripe for that, and so our goal is to be as safe and clean as a thing that you can connect to as possible. All right. Let's see. Oh, one really neat thing about this is that all of the technologies you see here, they all have licenses. So in a normal ecosystem build out, you would basically have to go to each of these folks and draw down your own license, right? But PixelStrings, we've already negotiated all of these license structures with all of these different technology companies. So when you subscribe or use PixelStrings, the license is included. And there's no breakout. You don't have to worry about going and retrieving those licenses. We've done all that work. We spent several years now formulating what we think is a very straightforward, very easy to comprehend pricing system. And frankly, not only do we have to make it easy for the user, we have to make it easy for our partners. And we've done so. And so as we've added all these best of breed technologies, all these licenses are going to be they're all included with the pricing that we're extending to you, which is really great. Now I'm going to come back to pricing in a little bit. First, we're going to hand the conch over to Ernie and let him demo the app for you. And then on the other side of that, I'll get into pricing a little bit more detail. All right, Ernie.
Okay. As I mentioned before, there are some built-in workflows when you first sign in, and those, when you click on this, you're going to see them. Now, these here will be here in perpetuity. You can't change them, but you can duplicate them. And let's just go ahead and start with one. Let's start with anything to 50p. Okay, so this is anything to 50p Pro as HQ, and we have a really good description here of what's going to happen when you select this workflow. And I'm not going to read through all these things, but basically it's going to turn on our deinterlacers, our telecine pattern removers, motion comp when needed. It's going to make sure that if you're dealing with going from a high frame rate to a low frame rate, it inserts motion blur. Pretty much anything from higher frame rates. So if you put in 120p or 100p source and you're going to 50p, there's going to be a little bit of motion blur that gets between the two. If you were to compare a 50p and 100p of the same exact asset, the 100p is going to be a lot more crisp frame by frame by frame than a 50p. 50p is pretty crisp, but there is going to be some motion blur compared to what 100p could do. So if you're generating 50p, we're going to automatically generate that frame accurate motion blur to make sure you don't have any strobe effects on your assets. So anyway, this kind of lists everything that's going to happen. And if you want to use this as a way to learn how to use and build the workflows, great. That's what they're here for. So let's kind of walk through what's involved. So once you set the name and the workflow description, of course, you don't have to do anything in the workflow description. You can just put the name in. It's just nice to know what you're going to do to the asset. Okay, target, you can do a standard or an IMF. We're going to keep in the standard world for right now. Wrapper, codec, preset. These are all Apple blessed and approved ProRes generations. So no, you don't have to worry about would it be approved by Apple if it was submitted? The answer is yes, because we are an Apple partner. Image, output frame rate, output resolution, scan type. You can change that to interlaced upper field or lower field first, depending on your resolution. Anything up to 4K DCI, or you can do custom, where I can put in an 8K asset right here. So if I want to put in, if I want to generate an 8K asset, no problem. I just put the raster in that I want to be able to work with. I'm going to go back to HD. Frame rates, select what you want. Up here as well, let me just go over the codecs and wrappers really quick. QuickTime, MXF, MPEG, Transport Stream, and MP4. We're going to be adding a lot more codecs to these as the days go on. Probably by May 1st, there's going to be 2 or 3 additional codecs and wrappers added to this. But basically, you just select what you want here. We have DNX and ProRes and QuickTime, MPEG Transport Stream. That's going to be H265. So yeah, you can take a look at this and see what our codec and wrapper offerings are. Source sizing, match input display aspect ratio, 4:3 or 16:9. Now, there are a lot of CinemaScope and there's a lot of other resolutions, 1:1, 9:16. If right now we have this geared towards broadcast of 4:3 and 16:9. But if you guys need to do a different resolution, display aspect ratio, send us a note at support@pixelstrings.com. We can always add any other display aspect ratio that you guys need, and we're going to be adding quite a few more. Just if you have one that you need, let us know what it is. Framing mode, this is all about when you're up-resing or down-resing. Do you want to add letterbox, pillar box? Do you want to do a center extraction on the image, or do you want to stretch the image? We always start with the fit. If you're doing an anamorphic stretch, then of course, you would do a stretch, and it wouldn't look like that. It would look normal. So it all just depends on what you want to achieve, but we give you those three options. If you want to do something like crop out the top 32 lines of VBI, you set your crop region right here. It will automatically up-res the image using our Tachyon or DarkEnergy if you turned it on to be able to make sure it fills the raster with a very, very high-quality up-resed image. If you want to specify a starting timecode of your file, this is where you do that. Audio, this is set right now for one track by default. If you need to add audio, you can do so. Say I want to drop the audio, want to do or just do pass through. I can also same thing with data. I can add tracks as desired. So it's a pretty robust way to add and remove tracks. This is going to change dramatically, though, in the Skywalker sound, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But this is kind of where this is, and in about a month and a half's time frame, the Skywalker sound stuff's going to be in there. It's going to be, you guys are going to really love it. It's really, really flexible, and you can do a lot with it. Okay, convert fix. This is, if you hover over that, it says powered by Tachyon. This is our Tachyon. There is no difference between this Tachyon and Tachyon deployed in enterprise transcoders. All the same engine is there. You have the analysis options, you have the motion compensation options, you have the output options. These are all for preserving filmic look. And if you have selected this anything to 50p, everything is checked that needs to be to make sure that when you do an output, it is going to retain the look and feel as the originator intended. We do not do any harm. All this upsampling of 25p to a true 50p, two things happen with that. One, you turn it into a really bad looking home movie. And two, you generate artifacts. It's almost impossible to generate 2x the frame rate and not generate artifacts. It's just really, really hard not to do. Plus, again, the bottom line is you're altering the artistic intent, and us as distributors of content, it's not our place to alter the artistic intent of the content that's been created. We're very emphatic about this. We talk about that, and if you hover over any of these tooltips, especially down here in the output options, we certainly talk about why this is important to use all of these output options that we have here. Okay, the next tab, this is DarkEnergy. Optimized texture, it says powered by DarkEnergy. This is all about removing noise, so you get better low bit compressions. You get much better up-resing. You get superlative SDR to HDR up-converts. This is critical. And so we have some tooltips for each one of the filters that we have. We explain what they do. Essentially, this is Gaussian noise. This is going to be wavelet noise. This is also wavelet noise or impulse noise. The sharpening, self-explanatory. We have chroma noise reduction, and then we have dust busting. All of these things have these tooltips that explain exactly how and why you want to use them. Texture, we have some things here. If you're doing broadcast, you click this, and we're going to set this for broadcast texture. And the reason why you want to put broadcast texture in is when after you denoise and up-res, that image may look a little plastic just because grain and noise provide that warmth, and basically this puts that warmth back in. 35 millimeter film is exactly that. So I'm going to leave it on disabled. So again, I mentioned before about denoising to do some functions. HDR is one of those things. This is our partnership with Technicolor. And right now this little note comes up that says HDR disabled. And the reason why is because we only have it working with H.265. ProRes is going to be around the corner very shortly. We have to get that all the new HDR stuff on ProRes blessed by Apple. So once that's done, then you'll have a ProRes option for this. But right now this is HDR disabled because it's not an H.265 output. This ITM from Technicolor. Let me tell you, this thing is AI machine learning based, and it is incredible. The color tone mapping from SDR 100 nits to 1,000 nits or higher, up to 2,000 nits, is incredibly accurate. Oranges are orange, reds are reds, yellows are yellows. I mean, it's one of those things that it's hard pressed to say that asset did not originate as HDR after it's gone through the Technicolor process. And it's one beautiful thing. It's 100% automated as we've integrated it here. There is an upcharge for this. There is a slight upcharge for it, and Lance will talk about those type of things. But basically, it's pretty simple. We have I have to change the codec, and I'll do that really quick. Let's go ahead and change this to contrast. And I'm going to change workflows. Now, the reason why I got that message is because I had some things that I had changed, and it was telling me, hey, do you want to change this, save it, or do you want to move off of this before you change your workflow? Okay, again, we don't want people to put work into generating their workflows, and they click one button, then all of a sudden, all those changes are lost. So anytime you're going to lose something, we're going to prompt you to make sure you want to make that change. Okay, so this is where you would select your type of conversion. HDR, S-Log3, HLG, those will be added very, very shortly. We're rounding the corner on that. The model, right now, these are the 3 tone mapping models that are built in. And we give you a little bit of a description here about what each one of these are best used for. Some of the settings here, color space settings, this is output luminance, 500 to 2,000 nits. Bright spot controls, kind of tell you about what that's for here. And then saturation, if your source asset is a little bit saturated and you need to tone that down a little bit because it's really blowing up in the HDR space, you can reduce the color saturation here in percentages. So that's what the settings are for this. The next version of this that comes out is going to have, if you guys are users of the Technicolor ITM SDK, where you have created your own profiles, then you'll be able to map every one of those settings in the profiles in the next release of this. We're just wrapping up the GUI on that thing, so we're pretty excited about it. But if you have started to use this Technicolor process, I don't think there's anything else that you guys are going to want to use, because it's incredible what you can do when you use the automated processing of this thing. Retiming, this is our Wormhole technology. So if you have an asset that you want to remove 5% of the runtime, I would do a percentage shorten, for example, and I would just put in 5. And then once I put that in, it's going to use our motion compensation engine to automatically remove 5% without dropping frames. We are not a frame dropping company. We don't blend frames. We don't drop frames. We create frames from motion compensation data. Other people might call it optical flow, but every frame is a new frame that gets generated. If I want to start the retime at a specific time code, I set that here. So let's say I have the asset starts at 58:30. I have 1:30 of color bars and slate, and then the asset starts at 1 o'clock. I would put in a starting time code of 1 o'clock here. And then ending time code is exactly that. I wanted to retime the asset by 5% up to a certain point, and then after that, I don't care. That's what the ending time code is for. And if you forget what that is, again, the tooltip tells you exactly what's going on with that. Now, when it comes to audio, you have to tell it what to do. So let's say I have this file that has 2 tracks of discrete audio. So I'll do mono 1 add, and then I'll do mono 1 add. And the reason why we want to group these is we want to prevent audio phasing. So when we're pitch correcting and retiming that audio, you have to make sure that you set your audio channel layout correct for the target. The last thing that I'll talk about is broadcast compliance. This is legalization. So if you want to do an EBU R103 optimum, you select this, and all of the needs and everything will be assigned so that way you don't exceed these DPP settings. One last comment about everything that we do here in PixelStrings. You generate these workflows 99% of the time with what you want the asset to be, not what it is today. The idea of PixelStrings is we do the analysis. We determine everything about the asset. We determine frame by scene by scene. Is it progressive? Is it interlaced? Is it telecine? We determine scene by scene by scene. Is it upper field first or lower field first with the telecine dominance? All that stuff happens automatically. So when you look at these assets and we say anything to 23976, we literally mean you put anything in here and it's going to become 23976 ProRes HQ. And we've defaulted it to 1920 by 1080. But to change this, all you have to do is go in here and say, I want it to be 20 consumer 4K. And now I hit save. And it'll say there's a workflow error and say, well, what's going on? I can't save this. So I have to duplicate the workflow and save it. Okay, great. So let's duplicate it. I've duplicated it. I've got this 4K here. Now I can hit save, and there it is. There's my copy. And let's say I want to change the name. I want to change this anything to ProRes instead of that. I want to change it to anything to ProRes HQ UHD. And I click on rename workflow. Bingo, it's done. So again, that's kind of how you can use these things to generate your new workflows. But the main point again is that doesn't matter what you put into it. This is exactly what it's going to become. And Lance, go ahead and take it from there.
Thanks, Ernie. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming down the pipe here. The most exciting piece of news in the immediate future is the Skywalker Sound Audio Toolset. You'll see a snapshot here of the GUI that we're developing. It is exclusive. This toolset is exclusive to the PixelString's media conversion platform. Loudness analysis and correction is going to be designed to handle all the major streaming platforms. If we're missing one, let us know. I'm sure that they'll work with us and add it. And it's really designed to provide excellent auto correction of loudness for all of these outputs. And it also provides down mixing and remapping. The upcharge is going to be for the audio retiming component. That's a secondary piece of technology that's a little more complicated. But the reason we partnered with these folks is they're just awesome at audio. That's all there is to it, and we're super excited to be working with them and learning as we go. So look for this release. We're hoping next month, but it could be June. We want it to work right. We want it to be stable. We want it to work out of the gate. So, and we want to make Skywalker proud for selecting the PixelString's platform. So we're not going to release it till it's working really well. But we're thinking June at the latest.